sports mascots. The 5 tool, like the Raptor mascot to me is the greatest mascot.
Oh.
Wait, where's that? Okay, got it. Hi, we're being recorded. Mascots.
Yeah, we're live, Hebsy. Here we are.
Fantastic. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Red Carpet Show. Will Smith here, along with Chris Rock, and I'm just waiting for Saturday Night Live and their cold opening.
Oh, wow.
It's got to be, because the Trump stuff, all that time with Baldwin was right. But there's now got to be, it's got to be the easiest thing to do. I mean, you could even get the real Chris Rock to come on Saturday Night Live, make a guest appearance as Will Smith, hitting the guy. Wow. Anyway, that's it. Hi, everybody. Toronto Mike, how are you?
Good. How you doing? I'm tweeting at you, so we don't forget to have you tweet at your followers before we start this sucker in 3 minutes. But I'm good, man. Did you watch Leaf game? I guess should we save that sports talk for later, or did you watch Leaf game last night?
That's too many questions, man. Just say what's on your mind. Say what's on your mind. Is it okay to do this? Am I all right to do that?
Oh, I just wonder, am I going to feel the thunder?
Come on, man. What's going on? Tell me while I retweet. Tell me.
Well, my boy is here. My 20-year-old is here.
James is there?
Yeah, he's a.
Bring him in.
There's a curd in there. He's lying in the bed right now.
Tell him my son's looking after the couch. That the couch is being well used.
If he was awake, I'd get him in here. But I think
okay. Never
mind. Join us for. I'm trying to walk and chew gum at the same time here. Okay. Now this is gonna go right into your mentions. You're gonna retweet that, and we're gonna be off to the races.
Okay.
So my boy's here. So we watched the Leaf game together last night. I forgot how much fun it is to watch with my oldest son. Like, I get most games I don't get to watch with him, and it's a whole different dynamic. It all just seems more exciting. It's more exciting when you watch, when you watch a game with your boy.
Well, you'll ask me on the show when we actually do the actual podcast about my experience seeing the Raptors Celtics
with your boy,
with my boy.
Hebsy on sports,
and many beers too.
Can you afford all those beers? That's expensive.
Who said I was buying?
Oh,
kid's got dough. He's a comedian. He makes money.
Wow,
makes some good dough. He's playing to big houses, playing to 700, 800, 1,000. He's got a tour all over the United States, for crying out loud. Starts in June, ends in October. I think he's got 3 days off or something like that.
Wow.
In that span, he's got, and covering the entire United States and then Western Canada, I think, at the end of it. Vancouver, I know, is the last stop. Yeah. I'm trying like, well, when can I see you this summer? He says, well, let's see here, Dad. I'm in Austin, Texas I'm in LA there. Sacramento. We're in, holy cow.
Okay. So
and even then, I can't get tickets. Even then. There's no free tickets to be had. No. And I got to buy merch. I can get 20% off the merch. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm sure his appearance on the show last week boosted his followers by.
It introduced him to a new demo.
Right.
All right. Yeah, we got somebody joining us from Lethbridge already. Okay, so I'm looking at the clock. Yeah, we got a.
Wait, Lethbridge. That's 2 hours behind. Oh my God, really?
I know. Shout out to Wayne Brown.
Right on, Wayne. This is great that people are getting up, like starting their day with it. Like it's like a Friday morning show. It's just Fridays, though.
Right.
People have been clamoring for like, you got to do more than one show a week. No. One's enough. Keep it fresh.
Keep them wanting more.
I think they asked Saturday Night Live, do you think you guys could do like Wednesday Night Live too? No.
Do you think they ever had that conversation though? When it had
no. I'm sure. Oh, they had to have, right? Because when you've got something that makes money, you're doing everything you can. Spin-offs, like can we do specials? How many specials a year can we do? Right? Like when Carson used to take vacation, the best of Carson that they used to run had massive numbers. They edited all the great, parts of the last however many shows. So yeah, he'd take holidays.
You ready to roll, brother?
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. I got to be careful not to be too excited, okay? Hi, welcome to Hebsy on Sports. It's episode number 278. I'm your host, Mark Hebsher. It's the morning, so I've got to keep it, I can't be too excited about all the great stuff that's going on in sports, okay? No, this isn't an April Fool's Day joke. This is the way it's going to be from here on in. It's like easygoing, take it in stride. Got to be, even keeled as a sports fan. Yeah, right. This is why my son doesn't follow, a team, because he gets too emotional. I get it. He doesn't want to be that way. Anyway, Mark Hebsy here in the Little Italy studio for the Hebsy on Sports episode 278. And on April Fool's Day, like years ago, back in the 80s, we might try to pull off a joke. You'd be waking up in the morning, it's radio, and somebody go, the Maple Leafs have traded for Guy Lafleur, ladies and gentlemen. You go, holy shit, Guy Lafleur. And then someone going, April Fools, like April Fools. Yeah, there are no April Fool today. Everything is real today. On the show today, the World Cup draw. Now you're going, what the World Cup draw? I mean, I've watched a lot of morning television before. What is that? Well, I'm here to tell you, I don't remember experiencing it ever, because it never happened in my life where you got up or you quiet.
Right.
Play. Never happened before in my life. However, I should tell you, me and Greg Brady witnessed the FA Cup draw when we were in London on TV. And it was wild, right? Like 9th Division Stonehenge, Tottenham Hotspur. Like it was goofy, man. It was like, who are we drawing? Like, and these little towns would cheer that they were getting Man U or Liverpool. It would like they'd be so excited. They're looking forward to getting pummeled 11-0 in the first round. Anyway, I digress. Great to have you on the show. It's going to be Canada, Portugal. I guarantee you. It's going to be the group of death for Canada. Anyway, the Leafs. Let's talk about the Leafs having a great week. Auston Matthews, it's the 50 mark. We'll talk about that. Don't get too excited, Hebsy. So I have comparisons to Rick Vive that you won't believe. Mike, remind me.
Okay? Yeah, I will.
3 times 50 goal scorer. Do I have comparison? Anyway, Raptors having a pretty good week. Pretty good. As their magic number is down to 4, Mike. 4 to avoid the dreaded play-in. The Jays pounding the ball all over Florida. It's good to be a Toronto sports fan, which means it's great to listen to a show like this because we are the Toronto sports fans. This is what we are. Look what Mike's got on. He's got the Doug Gilmour circa 1993 Leaf jersey. Am I right? Beautiful.
Yeah, when he was an assistant. So when Wendell was on 93 TBX. Alternate. When Wendell leaves, then he gets alternate. The captain. So alternate. Oh yeah, you know what? I've been calling it assistant for 40 years. So
yeah, alternate. I know. It's like if the captain cannot perform his duties as captain, the first alternate and the second alternate. Some teams had 3 alternates. There were times where you could have as many or as few as you wanted. You could have the C on this. You could have the C over here. Boston didn't have a captain for years. It's a bunch of, Johnny Busick was like the assistant. I think they said to him, do you want to be captain? Said, oh, for fuck's sake. I've been the assistant captain, the associate captain, the alternate captain, whatever the fuck captain for 12 years. Now you're going to make me the captain. Like, think about it. Think about how many pictures are there of a Boston Bruin with a C. And forget the Ray Bourque era. But before that,
interesting.
They didn't have a captain. Orr wasn't the captain.
Really? I don't think I knew Orr wasn't the captain. That's amazing.
It's not amazing, but that's the way they were. The Leafs didn't have a captain.
It's a mind blow, Hebsy.
The Leafs didn't have a captain for years. People kept going, you got to have a captain. You got to have a captain. Hey, don't even get me started. Okay. Don't even get me started. Oh, by the way, by way of introduction, Toronto. Mike joins us as always, the legendary Toronto. What was I going to say? I had a good comparison for you. Not the Phil Kessel, because he just hit 964 games, which, broke anyway, he's like second. I'm trying to think who it was. I had his great comparison. You're the Geets Romo of podcasting.
I love Geets.
You're the Geets Romo of podcasting. Think about that.
Okay.
For a second. Like that. He started off as a mild-mannered engineer behind the scenes, right. Wires and, digital. And now look at you.
Well, I think that's a great compliment. Thank you, Hebsy. But Hebsy, because it's April 1st, do we get the Larry Robinson story off the top?
All right. So here's the deal. I pulled off, I think the best April Fool's joke ever. This was in 1980. I'm working in radio in Montreal at CJFM, FM 96, a very popular station in Montreal. And normally in those days, you'd wake up in the morning and you might flip on the television for the morning shows, although they weren't as popular and there wasn't as much television, but for sure you flip the radio on, right, in the car or whatever, kids going to school,
Sure.
check the weather forecast. And now the sports comes on, and yours truly goes, good morning. And this is April the 1st, but people aren't waking up going, oh, April the 1st. You don't wake up thinking of the date. That's my whole point. Right. So I'm on the radio and I go, ladies and gentlemen, big news. The Montreal Canadiens have traded Larry Robinson. And Larry's here with us in the studio. And here's Larry Robinson. And it's the real Larry Robinson. And he's crying and he's saying, I got the phone call and I'm being traded to LA for Marcel Dion. And he's crying. And the switchboard at the station is lighting up like a Christmas tree. What the hell is going on? And then I would come on again, and we'd run the clip again. You know, he was there. Anyway, I had recorded that with Larry Robinson the day before because he thought it was a great idea to pull an April Fool's joke on the city of Montreal. We had a very popular show, myself and Mark Burns. And so he agreed. He basically not agreed. He said, yeah, let's do it. So he came into the studio the day before. We recorded it. We played it like it was live. It was beautiful. So much so that Jeff Rimmer, who was at CFCF Radio at the time, our competitor, he flipped out and figured, boy, we better get some kind of an April Fool's joke going. And so he had Jeff Reardon traded from the Expos to somewhere else, which eventually happened. That was a while later, but at the time, no.
Right.
Some lame attempt to come up with their own April Fool's joke. So we nailed them good. Nice. But here's the best part. I find out a while later. Okay, this was 7:00 in the morning in Montreal, right? I think we started at 7 a.m. We did the first one, and then we would run the clips at 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30, and then at 9 a.m. we'd go, okay, April Fools. So unbeknownst to me, someone had contacted Marcel Dion in Los Angeles at that time. That's 4 a.m. Los Angeles time. Right. Woke him out of bed. He had gone for a bender the night before, whatever. And now they're saying to him, you've been traded to Montreal. How do you feel? And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? And then the guy, the writer, whoever heard said, oh, we just heard on Montreal radio. We heard Larry Robinson saying he was traded for you, right? No texts, no emails in those days. They picked up the phone. They woke him up. And he's like, son of a bitch, what the hell? And he's calling around going, what the fuck's going on? I just got traded to Montreal. Anyway.
Amazing. Hebsy,
written up in the LA Times, let me blow my own horn, okay?
Yeah.
Written up in the LA Times, written up in the Sporting News as one of like the great pranks.
Wow.
Very, very proud. And written up in Larry Robinson's book. Larry.
Love it, Hebsy. Love it. And what's the name of Larry Robinson?
I think it's book? Robinson for the Defense. It's by the great Kevin Shea. And I believe it's Robinson for the Defense.
Okay. Amazing. And you got some exciting news about your parents, right?
Well, we moved my parents into a senior's home. It's fabulous. It's like they're going to a resort. Think about this. My mom, I say, Mom, you get 3 meals a day, like made by professional chefs.
Wow.
She's like, you
should move in with them.
She says, I'm kind of tired of eating my own cooking for the last 70 years. Right. Yeah, I'm kind of tired of my own cooking. She only has so many dishes, that she can come up with for her and my dad. Anyway, they're in a great spot. They're happy. They got everything they need and then some. It's a wonderful place, and I'll give you updates. It's all good. And by the way, my dad, I got a bunch of baseballs that I got from my dad here.
Hey.
That he had stashed for. Think about this. He's got 70 years worth of stuff. So in here, okay, this is the official American League baseball from I don't know when. And inside, he said is an unbelievable one. He says, you can't open it though until he turns 90. That's in June. So I got to wait till he turns 90 before I can open that. But apparently it's the autograph of it's really awesome.
Well, live stream the opening.
I might do that. Anyway, listen, Adam Seaborn's joining us a little bit later on. This is very exciting because Mike, you know this as well as anyone. Sports media is just something we're interested in. Anyone in the business like me, was in the business, wants to be in the business, is in the business, loves to hear about sports media, the numbers. How many people are watching this? How do advertisers get money for that? What's a download? What's a stream? What are streaming numbers? How many people are streaming this game?
Right.
With relation to advertisers. And what about these deals where you're getting someone to hawk your product, basically? Where's, how much value is there? Branding, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, Adam's going to join us.
Love that stuff.
In a while. this is very disturbing. So the World Cup draw is like this morning, right?
Yes.
And I didn't want to bring this up, but my girlfriend Serena did. Her kids are part Portuguese, let's put it that way, and they root for Portugal. And I said, what if Portugal and Canada are in the same draw? She says, oh, they're going to root for Portugal. What?
Wow.
Right.
But hold on, where were her children born?
Canada.
So they're born in Canada, lived their whole lives in Canada.
Yep.
And because of, I don't know, maybe their dad's family or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay, that would be like two of my kids cheering for the Philippines versus Canada. Like, that's insane.
No offense to the Filipino community, but there's something with the Portuguese community and soccer that the Filipino community doesn't, not the same grip that it would have on Torontonians. You know what I mean, right? Yeah, yes, it's a good one, right? It's good. So anyway, I thought about it. I went, wow. I said, I don't know. I'm sure if they were playing, I'm not sure if Canada and Portugal, I'm not sure I'd want to be around.
It's kind of obnoxious. You've been born and raised in Canada. Let's guess that you love the experience, you love the country. Root for Canada.
But here, how about this? What if you were born in Portugal, or your parents were born in Portugal, or you had been back to Portugal, or you just love the Portuguese? You can't say to someone who loves Portugal and Cristiano Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, you can't say, you're Canadian, you got to stop that. And now you got to root for Larea, and you got to root for Alphonso Davies, and you got to root for Boria.
And we're only talking about when they're head to head, like when they're head to head. Like
I said, what if they draw in the same group? It's possible. Pod 3, pod 4, pod 2. Who knows? Very exciting. Anyway, we've never gone through this before. However, these people who follow other countries have gone through this before. Like, I'd never paid attention to who England drew. Couldn't have cared less. Canada not involved. See you around. Now I'm interested. Anyway. I don't want to get too excited. A whole new ball game.
I love it though, Hebsy.
Yeah, I've been told I'm getting too excited lately. There's too much exciting sports going on with the exciting young players in Toronto and Canada, and that I'm getting too excited. It wouldn't work on terrestrial radio.
By the way, is that from somebody like a hiring?
Very, very high. Yeah, very high up. I can't
because you're burying the lead here.
No, I'm not burying no lead. What do you mean?
They want you to calm down.
I'll tell you what.
They were you given the professional advice that for terrestrial radio you need to tone it down?
Yeah.
How come they never tell this to Sid Seixeiro?
Who? He's on television. There's no radio. Yeah, okay. He's on our radio. So I'm going to tell you, when those guys were on radio only, they were fabulous. Forget that you ever saw them on TV. I know that's hard to do, like both their heads on camera, but think about before that ever. When they did that podcast, they were great. Okay. They've gone their separate ways. It's different now, different dynamics. You're trying to work something else in.
Okay. But they're
gonna, they're Tim and Sid. They're going to remember Tim and Sid. It's Jay and Dan. Come on.
How did you receive this
feedback? You can't take two people that were together for a decade or so or longer, 20 years, and just disassociate them from each other. That's the way they are. Laurel was great without Hardy. No, he wasn't.
Right. Nobody talks about Hardy.
Right. Paul Simon was better than he was with Simon and Garfunkel. Bullshit. Sure, he had some hits and whatever, but Simon and Garfunkel together were magic, man. They were magic.
How did you receive this feedback that you're too excited?
You're asking way too many questions. Come on, man.
This is the most interesting thing I've heard all day. Like, I can't believe
listen, have me on your fucking show. Sorry, I didn't say it.
Well, that's a done deal.
Have me on to ask me. I'm saying write down the things you want to ask me next time you have me on the show.
Okay.
I need pasta and I need beer.
Done. Let's do it. We'll book it. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I'm watching the Leaf game. You are too, right? Last night?
I watched it because I watched it with my boy. I just want to say, because later I want to ask you about going to the Raptor game with your boy. But I watched it with my boy who's in town. He's normally in Waterloo, but he's here. And yeah, I watched every minute of that game last night.
Did you pay attention to the commercial for the gambling site? I don't know the name of it, but I know that the obnoxious woman from Curb Your Enthusiasm, Susie,
Essman.
Susie Essman, yeah.
Yes.
So what do you think of that? It's very American style, like in your face, and they're bleeping out because apparently she's going, because on Curb Your Enthusiasm, fuck off, Larry. She's like, fuck Larry, you're blah, blah, blah. Like Jeff's wife, right? Susie, right?
Yeah, she's curses like a sailor, right?
Yeah, and so she's on this gambling commercial. Essentially, she's telling this big bouncer to, get the fuck out of the way, you so-and-so.
I'm okay with it. I mean,
what do you think of that approach? It was a little, we were taken aback.
I mean, I'm a fan of the show Curb, and I enjoy the character, and so I kind of am amused by seeing that character. I thought it was interesting that this very Canadian Ontario thing imports in the LA Star or whatever, like the American Star. Like it's kind of interesting to bring in the American Star to kind of pop.
And what's the name of the site? Do you remember?
No memory of the site.
No idea, right? No idea.
No idea.
No idea. The ones with Dan O'Toole.
Okay?
By the way, the audio is off from the video by a hair, right? And I really pay attention to this because I do a lot of editing, and sometimes there is a delay. And of course, I think we're even used to watching shows or whatever where we see the bit of the drag in the audio between the audio and the video, and it's like we get.
I can't remember if you had asked me during the Olympics. I might have remembered. I can't remember. Right,
the name of that one. Okay, the one that Natasha Stanishevsky does, where it's her and actors, and they're going, "Come on."
I don't even remember the ad.
Let's come on. And then there's and the Bodog ones don't feature any. There's no personality. It's animated kind of stuff.
They should have you in those.
OLG, same thing with those ones, right?
Did I tell you I created an account? Stuff. I created an account through your website, and I signed up. But we can talk.
I appreciate it, Mike. But I need you to understand something. I don't get paid until you cash your bet or your bet is lost. So it was great that you bet. It was great that you took the money, and that's great. And they matched it, and you put it all down on the Maple Leafs, like in the Joni Mitchell song. But and that's great. But I think the idea kind of was, maybe
on the Bluejays.
$10 on the Leafs tonight, and
but you never
make
told
a $10 future bet and take it as opposed to taking the whole thing. Like, what kind of gambler are you, man?
I'm learning. I thought you got paid.
Put it all down.
Signed up and gave the $25. I thought
until the bet is paid.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. No, I'm just saying though. But I think the idea was like, Mike, have a little fun with it. Bet $10 on the Leafs tonight, and if you would have bet $10, you would have won $10, and then you could bet on Saturday, and you and James maybe could say, "Hey, James, I got $25 free from Boda." Anyway, I'll get into that with Adam later on about all these betting sites. But anyway, great to hear the roars in Toronto. And we were at the Raptors Boston game Monday, the game that went to overtime. Me and Dean went, and it was fabulous.
I saw the photo. Amazing. And who paid for all the beers you consumed at that game?
Dean paid for most, and a guy kicked over our two Heinekens, the tall boy ones they have there. Wow. There's tall boy, and then there's the extra tall boy. I didn't realize it at the time, right? Like, $40 for the beer.
What's that like though? Because that's a moment I have not yet experienced, and I'm looking forward to that moment where your kid picks up the tab for the drinks. That's amazing. Good for you. Good for you.
Good for him. It's good. All good. So we had a great time, and that game against Boston was great. And okay, so I can't believe I'm saying this, Mike, but the Toronto Maple Leafs have been flying under the radar this week when it comes to the big sports stories, because we got the Canadian men's soccer team having scanned their QR code to Qatar. There's the amazing Raptors on the verge of clinching a playoff spot without having to go through that play-in tournament. Right. Where seeds 7 through 10 have to qualify. And then there's our favorite hockey team, which always disappoints come the spring. And the spring is here because today's April 1st. So it's spring. Although the Leafs have like 16 games left in the season. The season doesn't end till like the end of May. Like what? Okay, still post-pandemic, I guess, or still pandemic. I don't know. Auston Matthews on his way to shattering the all-time single season scoring record for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Matthews with his 50th of the year. Let's hear the call I got the call from Gord Miller and Dennis Bayak because two TSN versions of the broadcast for last night. I'm watching Jay Onright, and I'm like, and he goes, all right. And so you hear Blake Wheeler's goal as called by Dennis Bayak on TSN 3, which is the Winnipeg version of it, right? And, score. And so now Jay's like the great Dennis Bayak. And then a little later, you hear Gord Miller's, sound up call of, Auston Matthews into the empty net, 50 goals, and that's Miller's call. And I'm thinking, this is fucked, eh? Like this is TSN's got the game, but this broadcast crew is doing it to the Winnipeg fans. And this broadcast crew is doing it to the Leaf fans, or is it the national game? That's right. Or is it the national game? Like the rest of Canada season? No.
They don't have national games, do they?
Right. Sorry.
only regional at TSN.
So the Leaf regions gets Gordon Miller and Ray Ferraro,
right?
And the Winnipeg region gets their local guy who's Dennis Bayak, who used to do Leaf games. And I don't know who's on with Dennis doing the games on TSN Winnipeg, TSN3, but I just find that to be like, that's fucking weird, don't you think? You know.
Yeah, but then
why don't we get the choice? Like, if I didn't want to listen to Gordon, and I like Gordon Miller and Ray Ferraro, but if I didn't want to listen to them, can I get the Dennis Bayak feed? I like Dennis too. I'd like to get the Dennis Bayak feed and the TSN 5G thing. What the? I got to ask Adam about that too. Anyway, Leafs win 7-3 last night over Winterpeg, who are battling for a playoff, but they looked awful, man. Took a 2-0 lead and then okay, 7-3. So now we've leapfrogged Tampa for second in the division. So if the playoffs started right now, we host Tampa. Okay. But Peter Mrazek, did you hear this?
Yes.
He got injured again, out 6 weeks. It's the groin this time. Oy. So that means the rookie Eric Kallgren. Spell that for me again, Mike.
Yeah, it starts with a K. I want to call it Kellgren, but it's
Kallgren. It's like Kallgren.
The Swedish.
So Eric and the soon to be healthy Jack Campbell, we hope, the rest of the way for the Leafs, I guess, in goal. Meanwhile, 38-year-old Mark Giordano scored a goal, becoming the oldest Leaf defenseman in 52 years, according to the NHL, to score a goal in 52 years. So I found it fascinating that the NHL would dig this stat out and mention the fact that it's been 52 years since someone older than that scored, and that was Tim Horton when he was 40 years old, did it in 1970.
But that is quite a stat, right?
But they buried the lead here, speaking of which. Here's the lead. The lead is the oldest defenseman in Leafs history to have scored a goal. Was who? Not Mark Giordano. He'd be like third on the list. All right. Tim Horton would be number 2. He brought 50 couple years before Horton, Alan Stanley.
Right.
In 1967 was 41 years and 252 days old when he scored. And he's the oldest Leaf defenseman in history. Why would they not mention that? Why would they go to 1970 and say, well, it's been 52 years since Tim Horton?
Maybe because it's Tim Horton, like the most.
Yeah, but come on, man. Come on. Names. Any stats geek like me would go, hey, give me context.
Right.
If you're going to mention a record, you have to, in that, mention who has the all-time record. Right? If you said that so-and-so just passed Yager for second place, would you not mention that Wayne Gretzky is the leader? Would that not be part of the story?
Right.
So that someone goes, wait a second, who is the all-time? That bugs me the most. Give me context, right? Well, that's 14 strikeouts in 7 innings. Yes, and what's the record? 22 in 7 innings? Is that good?
Absolutely, you need the
record. So
if
someone gives you a stat, you go, is that good? Like I'm saying to myself, is that good? Right. Like the other day, a guy said to me, he says, well, the Raptors have 44 wins. I'm going, like, is that good?
Right.
Well, what do you mean? Is that good? The most win. I go, yeah, but I don't think about it that way. Like, is 44 wins at this point of the season, is that good?
Right. Like,
where is that, in relation to their all-time record? Anyway.
I'm with you. By the way, you're saying his name wrong. It's Giordano, not Giordano.
Well, Giordano. Mark Giordano?
Right. Giordano.
Got it. And I should know this because I live in Little Italy. All right. So Auston Matthews, 50 goals. Okay. Did it in 62 games.
Wow.
So Rick Vaive was the first Leaf to score 50 in a season. So he had 54 in 1981-82. So where do you think that 54 goals put him in the top goal scorers that year?
Oh, that's a high flying era. I'm going to say not as strong as we remember in Toronto. You tell me, but I bet you there were a lot of goals.
Gretzky had 92. That's number 1. Okay. Right. Mike Bossy had 64.
Wow.
Okay. Dennis Maruk of the Washington Capitals had 60 goals.
Wow.
60. Dino Ciccarelli, 55 for the Minnesota North Stars. And Rick Vaive was 5th with 54 goals that year. Okay. So he was 5th. Now, Auston Matthews is first in the NHL with goals. He's got 50. Draisaitl's got 49. So he leads the NHL, right? He's not 5th. Right. Nothing against Vaive. It was a scorer's era, and he could score.
Right.
So the following year, second year in a row that Vaive scores 50, he has 53. So now here's the goal scorers that year. Gretzky, 71, an off year. Lanny McDonald was the closest to come to overtaking Gretzky back then. He had 66 goals. So Gretzky had 71. McDonald had 66. I don't remember the scoring race. I don't remember people going, oh, and Lanny McDonald's within 5 goals of Gretzky as I don't recall that. It wasn't like a Maris chasing Babe Ruth kind of a thing.
Was that your Marv Albert you were doing?
I don't. Yeah, sort of a 70s announcer. It could be. It might be. It could. Yeah. Mike Bossy had 60 that year, third in scoring with 60 goals that year. Michel Goulet of the Quebec Nordique had 57. Marcel Dion of the Kings had 56. Al Seacord had 54. And then 53, seventh in the league. All right. So again, not close to the scoring leader.
Right.
83, 84, that Gretzky again, 87 goals. Okay. So he improves on the previous season. He goes from 92 to 71. And they go, come on, you're not scoring enough, Wayne, up to 87. And he could have had 95 goals that year. He could have had 100 goals that year because he set the record for assists. It was just sick.
Right.
Okay. So he's got 87. Next best is Goulet with 56. Then Glenn Anderson's 54. Tim Kerr had 54 for the Flyers.
Right.
Yari Curry and Rick Vive had 52. So there you go. So those were Vive's 3 years. And the Leafs were horrible. They're a horrible team. They allowed more goals. They allowed 4 goals a game. Okay.
Well, Alan Bester was 5'7" or something like that.
If you had a goals against average in the 3s, you were good if you were a Leaf goalie. Trust me, man. Seriously, a lot of goal scoring back in those days.
Right.
Okay. Leafs back at it Saturday night when they host the Flyers. If the playoffs began today, it would be Toronto hosting Tampa. All right. Let's get into the Raptors for a second here, who continue to defy the odds of the Eastern Conference. Many pundits, including you, Mike, seem to think that the Raps were destined for a lottery pick this year, but yours truly knew that they had a fine young team led by the best coach in the NBA. Nick Nurse is still underrated. The guy won a championship. Oh, he had Kawhi, he had all these great players. The guy can coach. That's all I'm saying. Raptors' magic number is 4. Any combination of Raptor wins and Cleveland losses ensures that the Raptors will avoid the play-in competition and finish at least 6th in the conference. And right now, they play Boston in the first round, but they could play Philly. They could play Chicago. It could be great. It's great.
Woo.
I'll get to the Blue Jays later. Before I do, though, I want to tell you that. And Mike, again, Bodog is where I gamble. Okay. That's where I go. I have a relationship with these people. And so you went and made a bet and you just took all the money and put it on the Leafs to win the Stanley Cup.
No, I put it on the Blue Jays to win.
At what odds? At what odds?
8-1.
That's pretty good. 8-1. So you took the whole
I'll
enchilada.
Exactly.
You put $50 on the Blue Jays to win.
Correct.
At 8-1.
Right.
So when they win the World Series, you cash 400.
Correct. And I want to remind the listeners, though, only 25 of my dollars, because Bodog matched that, and then I put all 50 on the Blue Jays to win the World Series.
So when they win the World Series, will you leave that money in the account and again maybe bet the odd game? I'll bet a game here. I think I like the Jays to win against Texas in the opener. But we got Barrios pitching. Anyway, here's the deal. Do what Mike did. Okay. Sign up at Hebsy.online/Bodog. Get a free limited edition Hebsy on Sports t-shirt, which Mike is in the mail to you. It's coming to you as soon as your bet is won. Okay.
It's never coming.
No, come on. Open an account with Bodog for as little as $25 all the way up to $200, and Bodog will match your deposit. Sign up at Hebsy.online/Bodog. Now, Mike, I know you got the long sleeves on there. Roll up the sleeves. Show us how nice and smooth your arms are.
Honestly.
Okay, free of that dry winter skin. Tell me, what do you and Monica think of NateMakesSoap.com's soap?
Well, the fact Monica's using this soap is she's very I'll use anything anything. But Monica's so particular about what she puts on her sensitive skin. The fact she's using Nate's soap, that speaks volumes. Like, she's tried it. She feels good. There's no itchiness. Like, this is a big thing of Monica, very sensitive skin. So the fact she's using it is the best endorsement I think you can get for soap. And it smells great.
Wonderful. Well, today's guest is going to receive a gift pack from NateMakesSoap.com. If you go to NateMakesSoap.com and you enter the promo code Hebsy20, you get 20% off on your first order. And you're supporting a good, strong, solid local business. As well, we've got a partnership with GoodFootDelivery.com. They're a Toronto courier service providing meaningful employment to the neurodiverse and developmentally disabled community. great bunch of people. They were over here last week delivering T-shirts, as a matter of fact. It's a great company to use when you want to order from a local business that doesn't offer delivery themselves. Maybe a local bookstore, a specialty food store, all over Toronto. Okay. If you can get to the place by public transit and walking, they'll deliver for you. Goodfootdelivery.com. And if you put in the promo code Hebsy50, you get 50% off. Don't overpay for delivery. Goodfootdelivery.com. Now, today's guest, I'm looking forward to this. I'll give you a little background. I'm going through Twitter one day and I see ratings. I see television ratings for, I forget what the event was. Who is this fellow? Oh, Adam Seaborn. He's got some interesting stuff. I start to follow him. Now, before I know it, the guy explodes. He's a maven. He's an expert. He is, in fact, and like legit. He's this is his. He's in this business. Sports media, which we love, Mike. We love sports media. Numbers, gambling, TV ratings, shares, downloads, streams. It's very exciting. Sports podcasts, especially. How do you monetize a sports podcast? Anyway, please welcome sports media pundit, the number one, I would say, sports media pundit in the country, wow. Adam Seaborn. Welcome aboard. Adam, how are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Very well. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right. So what's your sports media background?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so I started my career in national radio sales. So I came out of school. I was, I've always been really interested in media. I was looking for a job. As you know, the media market in Canada has been compressing for the last 10 years or so. So there's not a lot of jobs for new grads. I managed to trick some people at Bell Media into letting me work in radio sales. And I moved from there into television sales and kind of their multi-platform sales. I then moved from there to an ad agency where I was buying ads as opposed to selling them and working with brands. And all along the way, I was spending a lot of time looking at ratings and looking at information. And that's the currency that advertisers care about, right? At the end of the day, advertisers don't really care about content. They don't care about the shows. They don't care about the hosts. They don't care about the bits that you do. They just care about the numbers. And
that's pretty cold.
Yeah, it's cold, but that's what
it is. About. I mean, if you ask someone locally, say, why do you advertise? Say, well, I like this person, or they bring in some business. It's not maybe based on hard numbers the same way as a corporation, for example, looks at the books, right?
Yeah, and I mean, listen, worked in radio. There's local advertisers, like so your local car dealership, your smaller markets. They care about the station. They listen. They love the host. They like the integration. But the big dollars that are moving around nationally, that really do keep radio and television stations afloat, they have no idea really who's on the station that they're buying. It's all looking at numbers. So when I was working at Bell, you'd get a buy, a buy would come down for Walmart, for example. So Walmart's doing, a national campaign. They're rolling out whatever it is. They're going to be buying, 125 radio stations across the country. They don't have time to know if it's, the FM station's number one or number two with this host and that host. What they look at is just the numerous ratings. There's a standard formula. They're looking at the cost per rating point, and that's going to inform how they buy, how much money they spend. And eventually that all trickles back down to the station once it gets through about a half dozen salespeople. So, I realized that a lot of people, I think, in Canada, we're a little bit misinformed about what's going on in media. It's a compressing media environment. Why are people losing jobs? Why are stations being shut down? This show's so great. Why can the owners at Bell or Rogers or Chorus not do a good job? And also realize that there's a pretty big cottage industry talking about sports media in the US. We get a lot of news from the US. There's lots of great journalists who cover it, but there was nothing that was domestic to Canada. So about a year and a half ago, I just slowly started posting information on Twitter and talking to people. And, here we are today where, it's blown up more than I thought it would, to be honest.
Well, listen, I think anybody that works in the industry now, in the broadcast industry, not specifically sports, but for sure, is paying attention to anything that's being said about their industry. I think that's natural. But also there's a curiosity, and Mike can probably speak to this because he never worked in the industry, but he watches a lot of TV sports and radio, listens to radio sports and all that. Tom Cheek on the radio. I mean, all these things that sort of trickle down. And Mike, chime in here on this one. We're fascinated by sports media.
I sure am. I mean, I have those quarterly sports media roundtables for a reason. I just absolutely love it. And it's part of just being curious how the bake is caked. Like, and then these
What?
moving
How
parts,
the
right?
what?
Well, should I say how the sausage is made,
No,
or
you
will that-
said
Yeah.
how the bake is caked.
did I?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bad sign, Hebsy. That's a sign of a stroke. We got to be careful here. We got to be careful here. But no, man, I love to hear the inside baseball, if you will, on all of this stuff. And I mean, Hebsy, the
I
reason
love it
Hebsy-
too. I never knew about ratings. They never told us. Look, Adam, only once, honest to God, a sales guy came to me. I don't know when he said, I said, how's Sportsline doing? He said, well, it makes a lot of money for the station. I'm trying to squeeze like a 7% raise or whatever it was. But the sales guy had said to me, he says, you can't tell. He's like looking like this, clandestine. You can't tell anybody. He goes, but you guys are over 200,000 in the province of Ontario. And I went, holy shit, like that's a lot, eh? And this is when we kind of first realized saying, this isn't just another station out of Toronto and Don Mills that's competing with CBC and City TV and Channel 11 in Hamilton, and TSN had just started. So, and that was a whole different, they weren't even part of the ratings system, was subscription. But anyway, I just remember kind of going, well, that's a lot of people that watch the show. They're making tons of money on us. And sure enough, they must have been making, I mean, the advertiser must have looked and said, like Labatt's must have said, geez, wow, 11:30 at night, let's go. So does that still work the same way today, where the advertiser looks and they just basically say, man, those are good numbers. That's right up our alley. Let's go.
Yeah. So when you think about the big dollars moving around, so the Labatts of the world, the Tim Hortons, the Ford, they have their ad agencies, and there's, about 4 publicly traded ad agencies that control most of the media dollars in the world. And what they're looking at is, they're in business for the long haul. They know that they're buying media. They're buying ads today. They're going to be buying ads next month, next year, and 10 years from now. So they're looking at things kind of from a large scale perspective, and it all has to get distilled down to numbers. The main metric in advertising is the CPM, which is cost per thousand, right? And that allows, a brand like Tim Hortons to compare things that are on radio to things that are on YouTube, to things that are out of home boards on bus shelters and whatever that is. So that's the number that they're going to be looking at. Now they're going to have kind of set CPMs that they're looking at on television or radio or podcasts or whatever that is. But at the end of the day, there's media makers there's market makers in the middle. And the media buyers are trying to find a good deal. And that might be something that's underpriced, or they might have a relationship with the station, or they might commit more dollars to them, or they might know that, hey, last minute deal available because something's undersold, or the station screwed up and they price something really inefficiently. There's all sorts of things going on in the background. But to your point earlier, Mark, like, I think people's jaws would drop if they saw how much money is spent in advertising. To your point, like your show, like, I always use this number because I think it illustrates pretty well. Number one TV show, essentially, outside of the news, because CTV's primetime news is the number one TV show in Canada. But the number one TV show in Canada every single week is Hockey Night in Canada. Okay, so you turn on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night. It's a safe bet that every time you see 30 seconds of advertising, that brand's paid $50,000 for that 30 seconds.
Now, that's a really for a 30.
So that's really round numbers, right? I'm just using a round number because there's overall deals and there's long-term commitments. But if you were just to average it all out, I'd say about $50,000 every time 30 seconds of advertising goes. Now, the standard hour of advertising in Canada is 12 minutes of ads per hour. All right. So you got 24 30.
Oh my God.
So then you realize the hockey game is about 3 hours long. And then you realize that when Elliot Freeman's doing 32 thoughts in the second intermission, it's brought to you by Well Simple, and that the Ram is involved in the pregame show. And there's an hour of pregame, an hour of postgame. So you got 4 hours of broadcast. And all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, this thing's making a lot of money. And all of a sudden that $12 billion deal for Rogers, maybe the calculus on it makes sense. And that trickles all the way down to the smallest radio station and the smallest TV station in the country, or even, the smallest podcast, all the way up to the biggest thing like Hockey Night in Canada. But once the scale gets small, then the dollars get small. And eventually the dollars get so small, it doesn't make sense. And that's what's happened to a lot of radio stations. It's not that they were doing poorly. It's not that the hosts were bad. And a lot of them were still number one in their market when they got shut down. But the scale was just too small for advertisers to care about it and too hard for them to make any money.
Are you allowed, or will you become when I say sports media pundit, are you allowed to have an opinion on a particular event player coach. I'm not saying, like, for example, you like to promote F1 because you love F1. That's you as a person. You're saying, I'm telling you, I love this. Let's take a look at the numbers for all the F1 races. I find it fascinating. I loved F1 before I ever saw Drive to Survive. People have just gotten crazy about that. So knowing that, can you say, for example, boy, I don't like the way this Rogers deal looks, or I love the way this Rogers deal looks? Or do you have to be faithful to your clients, your advertisers?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I've had a couple situations where sharing that information, whether it be with a TV network or radio station, is sometimes not in the best interest of, Adam Seaborn's day job. Unfortunately, you don't get paid for your tweets. Right. So there are, there are some implications there. But listen, I'll give you my honest opinion if I think something's good or bad. What I try to avoid doing is, I think a lot of people think that, and this is going to sound cold to say, but a lot of people think that the great content is what drives really good ratings. And that's true to an extent, but there's so many other factors that come into play in my mind before the content. Time slot matters, how it's being promoted matters, who's doing the production matters, what kind of advertisers are on board from the pregame, and what kind of relationships does the station have with the broadcast. I mean, everyone thinks, oh, it's on TV, they sell ads against it, and that's what they care about. But Sportsnet and TSN, advertising is their secondary business. Their number one business is subscribers. That's where they make the real money on TV, right? So they care about subscribers first, advertisers second. Advertising is great, but they'll always do something that's in the best interest of subscribers over advertising. Now, the big networks that are, over the air, like CTV, like CBC, and CBC is a different story with the whole public thing. But advertising is their core business because you can get it for free over the air. You don't need a subscription to watch City TV or CTV. So they're a little bit more focused on advertising, which is why traditionally, those big networks have always had your half-hour sitcom, your hour drama picked up from CBS or picked up from ABC. Now, people often are wondering, why is CTV picking up this terrible show from ABC? Right? This show from ABC is not very good. Well, they spend a lot of money going down to the upfronts, which is when the TV season starts, down in the US, negotiating deals with all the LA studios to make sure that they're broadcasting the show in what's called simulcast, which means it's on at the exact same time that it's on the US network. And the reason they do that is because they can take advantage of the US feed. So if I'm CTV and I bought the rights to Grey's Anatomy in Canada, huge show, been printing money for CTV for years, but I don't air it at the same time that it airs in the US, people can watch the US feed and not get the Canadian ad load. They get a US ad load. And we know that people, when they're flipping around their dials, they don't know if it's ABC or CTV. People just flip around and say, there's Grey's Anatomy. So they need to make sure that their time slot works, that at 8 o'clock, I have a show from ABC. At 9 o'clock, I have a show from CBS, and I can simulcast it all. And here's what, Global's doing. Here's what City's doing. So that's what they care about first. The content comes second, right, in the Canadian market. And we're so weird with that US border that we have all sorts of things like that we have to deal with.
Mike, you got something for Adam?
Okay, so Steve Simmons just wrote a piece about how Rogers owns a bunch of stuff. This is a fun fact. They own a baseball team, and they're spending big bucks there. We talk about that a lot on Hebsy on Sports. They own TSN, so they own TSN Radio. But Rogers does not own TSN. Rogers owns a Fan 590 and the radio broadcast, and they got one guy who is very good, but he's one guy. He doesn't travel on the road apparently, and he has no one in the booth with him. Like, they seem to be cheaping out on the radio broadcast. I'm just curious, what's the mindset for Rogers, the umbrella, that they're spending so much money on the baseball team, but cheaping out, like it seems like cheaping out nickels and dimes on the radio broadcast?
Yeah, this is going to sound mean, but no one's listening to the radio. And it's not Sportsnet, and it's not sports radio. It's just no one's listening to the radio in Canada. The ratings have dropped and the dollars drop with it. So it's all just a formula. And as the numbers drop, the dollars have to drop with it. And Sportsnet and the Bluejays are actually one of the things that they can make money on, because people will listen to the Jays game on the radio the way they won't listen to other things. And number two, you can monetize the Jays game more than you can monetize an hour of FM programming, because you get not only your 12 minutes of advertising, but you get the first inning is brought to you by Kia, and the first pitch is brought to you by Tim Hortons. And they also take the radio broadcast for Sportsnet and they simulcast it across the country, right? So unlike most radio shows in Canada that aren't picked up nationally, they just exist in their local markets. Ben Wagner on the radio is heard in 18 stations across the country. So to all of that point, Mike, the radio industry is, shrinking, and there's a lot of dollars moving out of it. But if there's one thing you could spend money on, it's the Blue Jays broadcast. So I would say cheaping out is an accurate description of what Rogers is doing.
So, but what is the, like, we're talking nickels and dimes compared to, what the least expensive player on the Blue Jays roster will make from, and I know these are two different budgets. Like, I'm not so naive that I think it's all coming, right? But we're just talking about letting Ben Wagner, one man, travel with the team and putting one body beside him, an analyst, hopefully maybe someone who played the game and can speak to the play that just happened. Like, doesn't sound expensive to me.
I don't think it would be expensive. I think it comes down to, and this is one of the problems that's happened in Canada with consolidation, is that there's not focus on every single area of the business. The focus tends to be on the biggest deals. It tends to be on what's going on with the television product. And the roll-ups with Bell and Rogers and Chorus have caused a bit of a problem, in my opinion, when it comes to areas that could on their own be profitable, like the radio department. And I think that's why you've seen a lot of podcasts come in and they're individually owned, or they're owned by a conglomerate of a few podcast networks, and eat a lot of share from the radio market.
Interesting.
Like this idea that the fan has, Adam, whereby, like, for example, we had Eric Smith on last week, and he's like, look, like they're on every week. Smith and Jones are on doing their radio show. Their, I guess, audio show is the way to do it, because it's consumed not just on terrestrial radio. But he said, listen, as soon as spring starts, and since Rogers has every single Jays game, right? They don't do every single Raptors game, but they do every single Jays game. That they kind of got to step aside. Basketball has to step aside for baseball, and that time slot that they're in, 10 to noon, is going to be taken up by baseball talk starting in April. I find that to be odd. Is there precedence, do you know, in the world whereby this type of programming works, where you're talking seasonally about a sport, and while the other sport is still in season, you're kind of pushing it aside?
I mean, no, I don't think that works. I think what Rogers is trying to do with Sportsnet, and this was an announcement a year ago when Dan Toman came over to take over the station, is they're trying to turn it into a podcast network, and they're going to have hosts and shows that are focused on specific niches, because that's the way the podcast generally exists. But they're also trying to keep the terrestrial radio product alive, because it still does make some money. There's still lots of ad dollars flowing to that. But unfortunately, they had this kind of Frankenstein where it's neither a good radio station with a good lineup, and it's not a good podcast network either. It's kind of the worst of both worlds. Right. So, I mean, it makes no sense to me at all. If I'm a hardcore baseball fan, I just want the baseball content. So I'm just going to download a baseball podcast. And that's what I'm going to listen to. Same way if I'm a really hardcore, golf or F1 or whatever fan, what the local radio station can do that those podcasts can't do is be local to Toronto and cover what's the story today in the city. To your point, the lead, like Auston Matthews, 50 goals. That should be on the radio all day long today. That's the number one story in the city today. And TSN, in my opinion, does a really good job of sticking to what the number one story is, which a lot of the time is the Leafs. But between TSN and Sportsnet, the fact that they're split with ownership, right? Rogers owns 100% of the Blue Jays. MLSE, they split all sorts of assets. CFL, 100% of TSN partner. You don't get the number one story all the time because they're covering their own back, right? So you're never going to hear TSN radio or TSN TV lead with the Blue Jays.
Which is why on this show, and I guess, I don't know, a few others, I was going to say a few others, but no, every other show is being controlled by the, Rogers or Bell or somebody that's got other interests, right? You really don't have, so the fact that independence is important. Now we talk about things like, for example, let's just say, somebody came along, one of the 27 different gambling sites came along and said, we want to give you $700, Adam. We want to give you $700 for every single person that you bring to us that gambles with us. So my thing with Bodog is, for example, and Mike and I had this discussion, you get up to $200 they'll give you, they'll match it. You make a wager playing with house money. So my deal is, hey, Mike, you sign up or anyone signs up, use my code. You get a free T-shirt, which is pretty rare, and also too you get house money and you can go and gamble. So what Mike did was he said, "This is great. I'm putting all my money on the Blue Jays to win the World Series," right? Whereas maybe Bodog would have wanted maybe a bet $5 on this game, $10 on that game, have a little engagement going, keep it kind of going. Where you got a bet maybe going every so often. How many of these sites are ready to be unlocked come Monday, the 4th of April? This is like a huge day for sports gambling, for the governments. Can you lay it all out for us here?
Yeah. So Monday, April 4th, legalization of single game sports betting and also iGaming, right? So that means online casino, which I think is actually being underreported. But that's Monday, April 4th. So you're going to see about a dozen brands that are ready to go, that are licensed, that are approved with the government, and probably another dozen or so in the coming weeks. And they're going to be the ones that you've already seen advertising, PointsBet, the Score Bet, Bet99, obviously a Proline and OLG. You're going to see FanDuel. They're not ready yet, but they will be. You're going to see BetMGM. And they're all trying to get what's supposed to be about $520 million of, gray market betting that happens in Ontario. That's what the number reported from Canadian Gaming is. So they're trying to get their share of that $520 million. I think there's probably only going to be kind of like the cannabis boom, room for maybe 4 or 5 players when it comes to when everything shakes out. But the way to determine who the winners and losers are going to be who can acquire the most customers to begin with. So they're going to spend $500, $600, $700 to acquire a new player, because once they have you, they have that data, they can remarket you with emails, they can send push notifications to your phone for in-game betting, and they own your data. And that's what it's all about. It's about getting as many users as possible. So, I mean, for the casual bettor, like you just highlighted, who wants to put $10 down here and there, it's going to actually be really great because, one, you're no longer operating in the gray market. You don't need to go to Bet365 and break the law. They're going to be regulated as well, too. So it'll be legal as of Monday. And 2, you're going to get a lot of promotion. You're going to get, hey, if you bet 100, we'll match $100. You're going to get, here's a free $50 to bet on a CFL playoff game, whatever that is. So I think, if you're a casual bettor or someone who's been betting for a long time, the next 6 months, you're going to have an opportunity to open 4, 5, 6 different accounts and probably, see which ones you like, see what the tech is good, and get a lot of offers.
Oh, so that's the way you do it. You just go to all these ones that are offering, to match or whatever, or free spins and stuff like that, and decide which one. In the meantime, so there you go, Mike. So you can go to a whole bunch of them and just log on.
Listen, I'm loyal to whoever is sponsoring Hebsy.
There you go.
They can't have me. Hey, I have a question about radio, just since we're, I'd love to talk about all this, but okay. So anecdotally in my circle, I've realized I don't know anyone under the age of, I want to say 35, but at least 30, but maybe 35, who actually tunes into terrestrial radio. This is something I can't encounter in the wild. I got a 20-year-old around the corner who doesn't know how you tune in terrestrial radio, I don't think. But I'm wondering, at some point does radio, maybe specifically sports radio, since we're a sports podcast, say, okay, it's only the old farts tuning in. Let's appeal to the old farts. And that means, give them what they want, which might be like Bobcat and Hebsy and all the... No offense, Hebsy. No offense. You see what I did there? I got to cake the bake here a little bit here. But why not say, okay, we give up trying to get these Generation Z. They don't listen to radio. So here, let's go hard on Gen X and baby boomers, etc.
Yeah. So the issue with that and what we've run into, because I think what you described is absolutely correct. There is a problem with radio tuning, and it's all in the younger demo. They're not adding any new listeners. No. The problem is that your customer is not your listener. Your customer is the advertisers. And 70 to 80% of all ads bought and sold in Canada are against the demo of adults 25 to 54. That's what advertisers care about. Adults 25 to 54 years old. Once you turn 55, you're in this 55 plus category that very few people buy, that very few brands are looking at, very few agencies are looking at. And it might offend everyone 55 plus to say, you know what? The car companies don't care that much anymore about you once you're 55 plus. Neither do the QSR restaurants. Neither do the banks. You already have a mortgage. You already own a car. You already have So no one, yeah, exactly, zero radio. So that's your problem. And it's interesting when you talked about tuning. 70% of all radio listening used to happen in the car. The pandemic hits, no one's driving anymore. I mean, that tuning mix has moved to the home, but instead of tuning in at home, like people don't have radios at home. Yeah.
Like I know, Hebsy, I'm sorry, real quick, Adam.
Don't be sorry. This is fascinating to me. I know. Okay.
Makes no sense to me because you're pursuing this younger audience that's not listening, and you're still doing a traditional model of an ad stop. Like they say, they stop down. This is what they do, Adam. I heard it. They stop. They do I'm going to say 3, 4, 5 minutes of recorded ads that air, and then they come back. I'm sorry. These kids today, I got 4 kids, I can tell you, and Hebsy's kids the same way. They don't do that. They don't do the stop for 4 minutes, listen to ads, and come back. That doesn't exist. No. So what are you doing? You're pursuing an audience that wants nothing to do with you, and then you're saying, we don't care about, 54. I'm almost 54. I got a few years ago, but I have money to spend on things. I'm saying this model makes no sense. You're pursuing an audience that wants nothing to do with you, dinosaurs.
Listen, I agree with you absolutely. The issue is that, again, there's just no ad market for that older demo. Now, I mean, to be honest, there's been actually some change in Canada in the last 3 or 4 years where, because of some of the population in demographic, where there's been a real push, and this is being from the media owners who have seen that their younger audience is essentially not tuning in, to be like, we should really move the standard demo from adults 25 to 54 to adults 35 to 64. They're trying to buy themselves another 10 years on the top end, which I think is honestly somewhat valid. People are living longer. There's a lot of disposable income in the 55 plus category, but it's very difficult to go and tell all the top auto companies in the world. I mean, in the US, it's even younger. In the US, the standard demo for advertising is adults 18 to 49.
Okay, but when do they stop doing the stop down for 4 minutes of ad block? Like that model seems so antiquated at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they stopped doing it on podcasts, right? So if you're listening to a podcast, you're not going to get 12 minutes of ads per hour. You're going to get a pre-roll, 30 or 60, maybe 2 of them. You're going to get a mid-roll and a post-roll.
Hang on a second, Adam. You're talking with the Geets Romo of podcasting here.
I will say you do get that because SmartList, for example, now stops down for 5 minutes of bullshit.
That's true.
Ads. But guess what I have on my Bluetooth headset? I press it to advance 30 seconds each time I press it. So I do this on bike rides every day. I'll press that fucking thing 5 times. I never heard a word of ads. But if you bake it in like Hebsy does, and like I do and some other places do,
they're in perpetuity.
Content, no one's skipping because it's actually live, organic, authentic conversation. It's not a stop down for 4 minutes of recorded ads.
So when we buy podcast ads, we pay a premium for that. So your preloaded, pre-recorded, mid-roll or pre-roll, that's going to cost significantly less than a what we call a live host-read endorsement, right? That are, actually feel like they're part of the content, because the skippability obviously is an issue. But I mean, skippability exists on terrestrial, media the same way. It's called changing the channel, right? So,
right.
Or putting it on mute. So, I mean, that's all baked into the advertising. People know that. The thing is that, if I'm an advertiser and I'm looking at, I want to, let's say I want to reach, men who are, 18 to 49, who are sports enthusiasts. I think my brand lines up well with sports, and I'm an automotive maker. I know I can buy radio, and I'm probably going to buy a bunch of sports radio because people, it's actually pretty cost effective because the business is doing so poorly that they'll give you a good deal. But I'm going to buy a lot of podcasts because men are listening to podcasts. And unlike the radio, where I do my ad buy and Numeris tells me how many people are listening based on a sample size of a few hundred people in Toronto, which is dubious at best, I get the actual download numbers, right? I'm going to get a ton of data. Spotify knows more about you than you'd like to know. If you saw how much data is out there about you or listening. So I'm going to get the ability to know who listens. I'm going to get the ability to get those device IDs. I can retarget those IDs. I can get that first party data. And all of a sudden it's worth way more to me as an advertiser than the radio ad ever was. So in some ways they're not even comparable, even though to the listener, they're thinking, well, I can listen to a radio, I can listen to a sports podcast. It sounds about the same. It's the same kind of content. For an advertiser, they're put in totally separate buckets because the way you buy them is differently and the data you get from them is totally different.
Right.
Fascinating. So,
and the exception being live sports, of course. I'll shut up and let Hebsy take over.
No.
But live sports is still the one place. I watched the Leaf game last night. I see a bunch of ads. Sometimes I do mute, but sometimes I don't mute. That's the only time ads will hit me now that aren't baked in, like Hebsy's, is live sports.
Sports and news are driving all television and all radio in North America.
Right.
If it wasn't for sports and news, terrestrial media would already be out of business. That's really what drives everything.
Of course, because on this show, what do we talk about? Stuff we've watched on TV. I'm going to watch Tiger Woods in the Masters. If Tiger Woods isn't in the Masters, I'll still watch, but I'll bet you, I'm thinking, Adam, if it's an event with Tiger Woods, if Tom Brady's in the Super Bowl, LeBron, there are obviously superstars there that are going to just take massive numbers. If Woods plays in the Masters versus not, what type of a boon is that for advertisers? What kind of numbers?
Tiger is like maybe the exception of all exceptions, because he moves the needle in golf like nobody in any other sport. So the difference between him watching and him not, or him playing and him not playing, might be, literally 40-50% swing in viewership for the entire event. And that's just for the TV ratings. That doesn't take into account social media and website visits and all sorts of other things that are going to be monetized as a result. But yeah, like to your point, sports is still a place where people are irrationally passionate, and it needs to be live. And most importantly, the product is, to be honest, in my opinion, TV is still really great for live sports. When it comes to sports content, I think podcasts are far superior to radio, or like YouTube shows. I think things like what Pat McAfee does or what the guys at Daily Face Off in Canada here do are fantastic. But that's a place where you can get a lot of eyeballs and you can charge a premium for advertising. Everything else, it's a better experience for me to watch a show on Netflix or on Amazon Prime or on HBO, as opposed to saying, well, it's 8:00. I got to get on and watch Grey's Anatomy in time. And I'm going to get 12 minutes of advertising while I watch.
Right.
12 minutes of advertising, as opposed to, even if I'm on NBC's, low tier cost, which is Peacock, right? Even on the low tier that has advertising, I'm not going to get close to 12 minutes of ads. I'm also going to get more personalized ads, which I might appreciate more. And people are always like, oh, well, I don't want to pay for a subscription service that also has ads. Well, that's what cable is. Cable you pay for every single month. ESPN in the US has the highest carriage fee, and they make $7 a month. You pay $7 a month for ESPN in the US. In Canada, I don't know the number for TSN. It's in the similar ballpark. So you think TSN's in 10 million households, roughly in Canada, at $5 a month per household. Okay, they're a subscription company. That's a giant subscription company. The advertising is just cake on top.
Right.
Mike's rates are like that. Mike, you've got numbers like that pretty soon. Adam, I wish we had more time. In fact, I would love to have you come back every so often. If there's big events happening, or because you reveal the numbers, like, how many were watching the World Cup. It's exciting to see, a game that I've watched, for example, and then I wonder how many other people watched it in Canada. Wow, that's a great number. Were they as excited as I was about watching that game? So we'd love to have you on again, if that's cool with you.
Absolutely, guys.
Wonderful. And if you get a wonderful parting gift, keep you nice and clean, from NateMakesSoap.com. That's sports media analyst / pundit Adam Seaborn. Follow him on Twitter. It's at Adam Seaborn. It's easy. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Take care, bud.
Wonderful. Let's wrap up a couple other sports things before we go. Yeah, that Tiger Woods is, by the way, entered in the Masters because he won it several times, so he automatically is entered in, unless he says don't enter me. So he's in that. It's unlikely he's going to tee it up with the big boys, but word is he'll play the par 3 with his son Charlie. I don't know if he would tee it up against the big boys. He could risk it. He could shoot like 85. He could withdraw with a bad leg or something that it could really damage his legacy. I don't know.
I say he goes for it. Like, I feel like he's a competitive guy, and if he can walk that course, he's going for it.
He's got to walk that course, up to 4 times a day. But what if he misses the cut and shoots like 80?
But that's okay, because everybody.
Is it, do you think?
I think so, because we thought he might be like amputated or something. Like the fact that the man can walk. We're all impressed.
That's what he said. I don't know about that. Okay.
No. There's a good excuse.
I don't know about that, but you know what? Adam's right, man. If he's there, I'm interested. I would still be interested, but I know
he's the only guy in that freaking sport that gets me to tune in.
It's crazy, isn't it? Crazy.
Yeah,
this week it's the Texas Valero Open, featuring a bunch of Canadians. We've got Michael Gligic of Burlington, who I'm sure has played crosswinds. and loved it. By the way, they're coming back this year again as a sponsor. He is the top Canuck. He's at -3. Corey Connors and Adam Hadwin at -2. Nick Taylor and Adam Svensson, even par. Roger Sloan, +2. The leader is Russell Knox at -7. The ladies are playing the Chevron Championship at Rancho Mirage, California. Brooke Henderson tied for 48th at even par. Minjin Lee and Jennifer Kupcho, the leaders at -6. The NCAA Final Four basketball goes in New Orleans on Saturday. Kansas against Villanova with the Jayhawks favored by 4.5. In the lid lifter, Carolina against Duke with the Blue Devils a 4-point choice. I'm going to take Villanova and Duke tomorrow, and then Villanova to win the NCAA championship.
Spoiling the
Coach K's retirement party.
Right.
That's right. That's right. You know what? I forgot to mention, I have to mention, of course, the Blue Jays, because a week from today, Mike, is opening day against Texas. Now, you're talking about, like, I had tickets for 4, 5, 6, 7 baseball games that have all been canceled, right? Like 5 of them at spring training,
right? All
canceled. And then the first 3 for the start of this season, which were supposed to be taking place like this week. Like this was supposed to be opening day on the road, I think. Anyway, whatever the thing was, like 7 games, man, canceled. So next Friday is opening day, and we got the great Globe and Mail writer Brad Wheeler coming on, because baseball is so poetic, and opening day is just so significant in the lives of a lot of people, especially now. So for the Blue Jays, I'm thinking George Springer's going to have an awesome year. Okay, no injury problems at all. He is going to be dynamite. He might win the MVP if Vladdy doesn't, or Bo doesn't, or Teoscar doesn't, or Lourdes doesn't, or Kirk doesn't, or Matt Chapman doesn't. It's 350 and plays Gold Glove defense, or Danny Jansen behind the plate, or Kevin Biggio or Espinal at second base, or, you know, take your pick. What a good-looking team we've got. Winning yesterday 5-3 over the Tigers. Alek Manoah went 4 innings, struck out 3, allowed just 1 hit, no walks. Beautiful. Charlie Montoyo, I think, has a lot of options this year, Mike. I think they're going to be fabulous.
Well, we're waiting to hear your take. He was just, extended? Earlier today was announced.
Well, again, I mean, he's got to win. He won 91 last year, and they didn't win it, get a playoff sniff. So no playoffs this year. No more Charlie. I'm sorry.
But are you how do you feel about that? Do you are you disappointed they extended him, or do you think he's on a short leash? What do you think?
Well, I think that they've got enough talent that they figure, he really can't do too many bad things to him. I mean, if the players don't perform, they don't perform. But at the same time, there's more to it than that. You got to delegate your authority. You got to make sure your bench coach and your pitching coach. And by the way, Pete Walker, what's all that about? What's your take on that? Pete Walker getting caught DUI.
Because
I know that area too, man. The dude was doing 82 miles an hour.
Well, there's no excuse for drinking and driving, right? You make a phone call, and if you've had too much to drink, you don't drive. This is a black and white rule we adults live by.
I don't like it at all.
No, it's disappointing.
There's 2 NHL players named Sebastian Aho. One's a defenseman for the Islanders. The other is a forward for the Hurricanes. They scored yesterday at almost the exact same time.
Wow.
Okay. Think about this. Sebastian Aho of the Islanders scored his first goal of the year at 7:14 p.m. Eastern time in New York. Okay. 34 seconds later. Okay. At 7:14:34. Sebastian Aho of the Carolina Hurricanes scored his 31st goal in North Carolina. Both goals by the Sebastian Ahos gave their teams 1-0 leads in the first period. New York's Sebastian Aho is 26 years old and comes from Sweden. Sorry. And Carolina's Sebastian Aho is 24 years old and comes from Finland. And I think that's pretty cool. That'll do it for episode 278 of Hebsy on Sports. Thanks to Toronto Mike for production and inspiration. Hit him up at Toronto Mike. He's getting close to 1,100 podcasts. Boy, how time flies. Thanks to our executive producer, Scott Allen, and to our sponsors, NateMakesSoap.com and GoodFootDelivery.com. Use the promo code Hebsy20 for Nate for 20% off, and Hebsy50 for Goodfoot for 50% off. And thanks to you for allowing us into your headspace. Back with another episode next week. Our guest will be Brad Wheeler of the Globe and Mail. We're going to talk baseball. It'll be opening day for the Blue Jays, like a real home opener. How long has it been? Embrace the team. Have a good one. Until then, so long for now.